Welcome to MyCare channel. Today's Thursday the 2nd of December and as always, I'm your host, Lauren Chapman. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a throwback special of the program for you today, where we look back at our interview with Adele Murdolo from the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health. Enjoy the program and if you need anything, give us a call on 1300 46 1300. Research shows that in Australia, women of migrant and refugee backgrounds are at higher risk for poor mental, physical, reproductive and sexual health. One organisation on a mission to change this is the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health. Executive Director Adele Murdolo joins us today. Adele, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure to be here.
For all of those in our audience who maybe don't know about the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health, can you tell us a bit about your organisation and the work you do?
Sure. Multicultural Centre for Women's Health is a migrant and refugee women's health organisation. We've actually been going for 43 years, so I hope some of your listeners have heard of us over those years. And we are run by and for migrant and refugee women, so all of our staff are from migrant communities, and we do a whole range of different things, but all with the aim of promoting migrant and refugee women's health and well-being. So we conduct sessions in languages about health issues. So whatever the main kind of women's health topics are, we'll train up our health educators, and then they go out into the field, into women's workplaces or where they learn English, or it may be in a mum's group or other kinds of social groups, specific social groups, and we'll provide a whole series of health education sessions to women in language.
And you mentioned then you've been operating, well, the centre's been operating for 43 years now. Can you take us back to when you started or when the organisation was first opened in 1978 and what it must have looked like? Because I'm assuming it was founded by migrant and refugee women. How difficult would it have been for them to start an organisation like this back then?
Absolutely. It was actually very much a coalition organisation. So it was people who were in the union movement, it was migrant women activists themselves, it was non-migrant women, feminist activists as well, who all came together around the issue of abortion and contraception, actually, because at the time there had been some research done that found that migrant women had had a higher rate of termination than non-migrant women, and that the way that we needed to address that was through training up peer educators to be able to provide them with information about their contraceptive options. So it was really looking at an upstream approach. So, what is it that's causing migrant women not to have as much choice over their reproductive health, spacing their children, or, whether they were wanting to have children or not. And so we were able to provide in-language information about contraception. And at that time, we mostly visited women in factories because that's where so many migrant women worked. We had, by the time I got involved with the organisation, there were 12 languages, and they were still visiting back in 1994. That tells you how long I've been. We were still visiting regularly a whole range of different factories, and there were still quite a lot of migrant women. Of course, that has changed over time. There are lots of different workplaces now. Our manufacturing industry has really increased over those years. And so now we visit women in lots of different settings with doing other things like learning or socialising.
I want to ask you a little more about programming because it's so important that women information, particularly migrant and refugee women, in their native languages. And that's something that your organisation and MyCare channel share in common. We are catering for cold communities by providing info in their native language. Why is that so important, and how do you deliver those programs in their languages?
Look, it is so important that migrant women have the information they need in their language. And it really is, in some ways, not regardless of proficiency in English. Of course, proficiency in English makes a big difference. But you might have a woman who is comfortable with English conversationally, but when it comes to really understanding and processing complex women's health information, it's really important that that is in their language. So I think that just in terms of information being accessible, understandable, something that is meaningful, because, you know, you might have learnt a whole lot of kind of terminology in your language about women's health or about, you know, biological functions even in your language. And so getting information about women's health in your language builds on what you already know. So that in that sense, it's really important, rather than taking you into English, which is a whole new kind of way of understanding that thing. And there's also, it's not only a language issue, it's also culturally that we all experience our bodies and our health from a position of culture. So the way that we deliver our information is not just in a written way, it's in spoken. So we have a bilingual health educator who's able to discuss women's health issues in a cultural context. So, for example, if we're delivering education about, you know, what happens in the first, say, 3-4 weeks after your baby's born, there are some kind of quite specific things that women will do in usually when they have a baby in that first 40 days. So it's really important that a woman can get information about what's healthiest for her to do in those first 40 days from someone who understands her culture and who understands those practices, rather than someone who's coming to you and you have to educate them, you know, about what is usually practiced. So it's the language, you know, being that you understand it. That's first order kind of principle. The second one is it's in your cultural context. I think the third one is about it being delivered by a migrant woman, because it's about that peer education, because you're able to have that conversation with somebody who understands where you're coming from, who understands the limitations that you might have in your life because of migration, because of settlement, because of you know, perhaps the big kind of financial impost that migration puts on your finances, so that if you are going to be taking action on your own health, you really need to be thinking about what it's going to cost you, or, you know, so I guess it's also about that being able to talk with someone who's been in your situation or understands your situation without you having to explain it.
Adele, thank you so much for joining us today. I think everyone watching can agree that the work that you're doing at the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health is completely life-changing. So we really thank you for the work that you do.
And thank you very much for having me.
To learn more, visit the MyCare channel website, where we'll have links to the Multicultural Centre for Women's Health.
Do you sometimes feel you need help, but that finding the right help is just too hard? At MyCare channel, we'll make it easier. We'll cut through the maze of information and help you make an informed decision about help for yourself or your loved one. We offer free information in English and progressively in 26 other languages. So call us on 1300 461 300, subscribe to our channel and follow us on our socials. And we'll connect you with the support you need to live well and age well.